Today, we're uncovering the shocking case of a mother and daughter from California whose lives seemed picture perfect until a man entered their world and quietly divided it in two. What began as a story of trust and companionship inside a luxury care facility soon twisted into a hidden web of deception, secrecy, and control. And when one of them suddenly vanished without a trace, investigators discovered that the truth was buried far closer than anyone could have imagined. After her husband passed away in 2018, 49-year-old Mira Thakur focused entirely on work. She managed Golden Haven Assisted Living, a small but elite elder care facility in Fremont, California. The center catered to older clients from South Asian families who wanted private, culturally familiar care for their parents. Golden Haven charged premium rates and offered comfort that looked more like a boutique hotel than a medical facility. Under Mira's management, it became known for its spotless records and quiet efficiency. Mira's background in healthcare administration helped her run the business like a hospital but with the warmth of a family home. Her staff described her as firm but fair. She personally reviewed every new admission and spent evenings checking patient logs. After her husband's sudden heart attack, the work became her way of coping. It kept her days structured and her mind busy. She lived with her only daughter, 22-year-old Ria Thakur, in a two-story home a few minutes from the facility. Ria was studying neuroscience at San Jose State University. Friends described them as unusually close, a mother and daughter who acted more like sisters. They shared clothes, planned vacations, and spoke openly about everything from studies to relationships. Mira often told colleagues that her daughter was her greatest achievement. In early 2023, Golden Haven took in a group of student volunteers from local universities. Among them was Dev Rajan, 26, a recent graduate from Hyderabad pursuing a master's degree in health management. He had arrived in the United States only months earlier. Dev was polite, soft-spoken, and attentive with patients, traits that made him stand out immediately. He often stayed late to help with data entry, arranged wheelchairs, and assisted with daily reports. Within weeks, staff began noticing that Dev had developed a close rapport with both Mira and her daughter. Ria frequently visited the facility on weekends to help her mother. She and Dev started talking during meal breaks, sometimes grabbing coffee nearby. He was well-mannered and spoke respectfully to Mira, who appreciated how easily he fit in with the mostly older Indian clientele. To her, Dev represented the kind of disciplined, ambitious young man she wished her daughter would someday marry. By the start of summer, Dev was spending more time around the Thakur household. Mira would occasionally invite him for dinner as a thank you for his dedication. He helped her with small tasks, installing a printer, fixing a thermostat, even driving her to supplier meetings when her car was in service. Ria saw these gestures as kindness. Mira saw them as reliability. The three of them formed what looked like a comfortable routine. Dev's charm made him a natural part of their lives. He spoke humbly about his modest background, his goals, and his family in India. Mira admired his focus and treated him like a protege. Ria, on the other hand, was falling in love. Friends of the Thakurs began to notice how often Dev appeared in family photos and social gatherings. He joined them at community events, temple fundraisers, and even casual dinners. People joked that Ria had already found her match. Mira usually smiled and said, "He's a good boy. Hardworking. That's rare." At that time, there was no tension, no suspicion, only a sense of stability returning to the Thakur home. After years of loneliness, Mira felt her life was balanced again, a thriving business, a bright daughter, and a young man who seemed to bring warmth to both. No one around them could have imagined that the same man would later destroy everything that looked so secure. At Golden Haven, Dev was still seen as a trusted helper. To Ria, he was a devoted partner. To Mira, he was the image of the dependable son she never had. What none of them saw was the quiet dependency forming beneath the surface, a connection that would blur the lines between affection, loyalty, and control. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. By mid-2023, what had started as a routine friendship between the Thakurs and Dev Rajan had turned into something more complicated. Dev was now spending most evenings between the Thakur home and Golden Haven. To outsiders, he looked like a young man splitting time between work and his girlfriend. In reality, he was dividing himself between two women, mother and daughter, both unaware of the truth. His relationship with Ria had become open enough that friends referred to him as her boyfriend. They met on weekends, exchanged messages throughout the day, and she sometimes stayed late at the facility while he finished work. Dev was attentive, always soft-spoken, and rarely disagreed with her. Mira approved of their closeness, telling colleagues that Ria had finally met a good man. But the same traits that made Dev seem reliable to Ria began drawing Mira in too. She often relied on him to manage small business issues, vendor calls, purchase orders, repair requests. Over time, those conversations shifted from business to personal matters. Dev began calling her late at night, saying he was checking on a resident or reviewing reports. The calls ended with questions about how she was sleeping or reminders to take care of herself. Mira found comfort in the attention and convinced herself it was harmless. By July, Dev had become indispensable. He handled supplier accounts, reviewed staff schedules, and often accompanied Mira to off-site meetings. Their physical closeness started casually, the hand on her shoulder, standing too near, lingering when others weren't watching. Mira, lonely after years of widowhood, allowed it to continue. Meanwhile, Ria began to notice subtle distance. Dev still met her but often seemed distracted. When she asked if something was wrong, he said he was exhausted from work. His explanations sounded reasonable. She didn't know he spent many of those nights in private conversations with her mother. Golden Haven employees began whispering about how often Dev and Mira stayed late in her office with the door closed. The excuse was always paperwork. No one questioned it out loud, but the rumors spread quietly. At home, boundaries blurred further. When Ria came back from a weekend trip in late July, she found Dev already in the house, helping Mira fix a broken cabinet. He greeted her casually, as if nothing were unusual. That evening, Mira avoided eye contact when Ria mentioned it. In August, the overlap became undeniable. Dev alternated between affection and manipulation, telling Ria she was the only one he wanted, while assuring Mira that Ria's youth made her confused. Both women trusted him and blamed themselves for any tension. The first concrete sign appeared when Ria noticed her mother wearing a gold chain identical to one she had received from Dev weeks earlier. Mira claimed it was the vendor gift. The lie deepened Ria's unease, but she stayed silent. Inside the Thakur household, Dev now held control. He spent nights texting both women, tailoring his tone to each, romantic with Ria, protective with Mira. He spoke about love with both, knowing neither would suspect the other. By the end of summer, their lives revolved around him. Ria saw him as a devoted partner. Mira saw him as a companion who filled the silence her husband left behind. And Dev, confident in his ability to manage both, believed he could keep the secret contained forever. By late August 2023, what had been quiet tension inside the Thakur family turned into open conflict. Ria had started to piece together inconsistencies in Dev's behavior. She noticed gaps in his stories, nights when he claimed to be working but his car was parked near Golden Haven, or messages from her mother that repeated phrases Dev had used. The distance between them could no longer be explained by stress or overwork. One evening, Ria confronted her mother directly. She asked whether something inappropriate was happening with Dev. Mira denied it immediately, insisting that their relationship was purely professional. But her voice was shaky, and she avoided eye contact. Ria didn't believe her. The argument grew loud enough that a neighbor later reported hearing raised voices and a door slam. Ria left the house that night and stayed with a friend in San Jose. For the first time, the house fell silent. Mira told staff at Golden Haven that her daughter was spending time away, trying to minimize what had happened. She told herself the situation would calm down if she kept things under control. But privately, she felt trapped. She couldn't undo the line she had crossed, and Dev's presence had grown impossible to ignore. Dev responded to the tension by tightening his hold on both women. To Rhea, he sent long messages of apology, promising that he only loved her and that rumors about him and her mother were lies. To Mira, he said Rhea was unstable and spreading stories to punish him for pulling away. Each woman heard what she needed to hear, and Dev used that confusion to protect himself. At Golden Haven, employees began sensing strain. Mira appeared distracted during meetings. Dev, once cheerful and engaged, became defensive when questioned about work. The two were often seen in closed-door discussions that left Mira looking pale and withdrawn. Staff didn't know the reason, but they sensed pressure building. In private, Mira told Dev she wanted to end the relationship completely. She said it had become destructive and that she needed to repair things with her daughter. Dev resisted immediately. He reminded her of the letters of recommendation she had written for his visa renewal and the small financial advances she had approved for him. He implied that cutting him off would leave him stranded and might raise questions about their connection. It was both emotional and strategic pressure. The more Mira tried to distance herself, the more Dev reacted with panic. His dependency had turned into possessiveness. He called repeatedly, showed up unannounced at her office, and once waited outside her house for hours after midnight. When she confronted him, he apologized, saying he just needed to talk. Mira didn't report it. She still believed she could manage the situation quietly. Rhea, meanwhile, avoided both of them. She focused on classes and told friends she was done with the drama. But she couldn't fully escape. Dev continued sending messages to her phone, alternating between affection and guilt. "You're the only person who truly knows me," one of them read. By September, the balance of control had collapsed. Mira was scared to anger Dev but also desperate to end contact. Rhea refused to return home. And Dev, caught between exposure and rejection, began to unravel. What had started as manipulation now felt like survival to him. He believed that if either woman spoke, his future in the country, his education, and his image would all collapse. In those final weeks of summer, Mira and Dev's relationship was no longer about affection or secrecy, it was about control. She wanted to escape it, he couldn't let her. The walls were closing in, and everyone around them sensed it, but no one understood how far Dev was willing to go to keep his double life from falling apart. On the night of September 16, 2023, Golden Haven Assisted Living operated under its usual evening quiet. The last staff members finished their rounds, and the corridors emptied by 9 p.m. At 9:12 p.m., the security system recorded employee Dev Rajan entering the building through the staff entrance using his assigned access card. Nothing about his arrival drew attention at the time. Earlier that day, Mira Thakur, the facilities director, had sent him a short message asking to meet after hours to talk things through. She had reached a decision to finalize his internship paperwork and end all personal contact. She also intended to tell her daughter about the affair and move forward. Her tone in the text was polite but direct. Once inside the office, Dev and Mira spoke for several minutes without incident. According to later witness accounts, one nurse on the East Corridor heard voices but assumed it was a normal discussion about staffing. The exchange escalated quickly. Mira told Dev she was ending their relationship and wanted to correct the damage it had caused. She said she planned to tell her daughter. For Dev, the threat of exposure meant losing both women's trust and potentially his immigration status. Panic replaced reason. He grabbed a heavy brass globe ornament from the corner of the desk and struck Mira on the side of the head. She fell to the floor and did not move again. Investigators later confirmed through residue and impact traces that the single blow caused instantaneous unconsciousness and death. For several minutes, Dev stood still. The office was silent except for the air conditioning. He locked the door from inside and began cleaning, wiping the edge of the desk, the chair arm, and the door handle. His next concern was where to conceal the body. In the utility section of Golden Haven was a small, top-loading medical waste incinerator used for sterilizing soiled materials and dressings. The chamber was designed for small loads, not large remains. Dev knew the machine required an electronic keycard to operate and that the logs recorded every activation. Still, it was the only option he saw. He retrieved a rolling supply cart from the corridor, covered the body with a plastic sheet, and moved it toward the utility wing. Security footage later confirmed his movement at 9:41 p.m., the covered cart visible for just 3 seconds as he passed the hallway camera. Inside the incinerator room, he forced the body into the top-loading hatch, bending it tightly until the lid closed. He then initiated 2 consecutive high-heat cycles with his access card. Logs later showed activations at 9:47 p.m. and 10:02 p.m., both outside scheduled hours. During the cycles, the machine reached temperatures exceeding 900 degrees Celsius. While the incinerator ran, Dev returned to the office. He gathered Myra's phone, purse, and keys, and deleted several recent text threads. From her phone, he sent messages to maintain the illusion that she was away. The first went to her daughter, taking a few days off in Napa. "Don't worry, I just need quiet." The second went to the staff group, stating that she was on a short retreat and would reply to emails later. When the second burn cycle finished, he cleaned the area. He wiped the incinerator control panel, removed a small spill of ash with disposable towels, and returned the supply cart to the storage bay. Before leaving, he switched off the lights, repositioned the desk chair, and ensured the office looked untouched. At 10:28 p.m., security footage showed Dev exiting through the side door and locking it. Outside, he placed Myra's purse and keys inside his car and kept her phone active to sustain the illusion of travel. By the next morning, staff believed Myra was away on personal leave. Emails were answered from her account, and daily operations continued. The building showed no sign of struggle. The only trace of what had happened remained inside the digital access logs and the silent burn history of the machine. For nearly a week after September 16, 2023, the absence of Myra Thakur did not raise any official concern. Her daughter, Rhea, was still avoiding contact after their argument and believed her mother had gone on one of her short trips. The staff at Golden Haven assumed the same. Dev Rajan told them Myra had left for a few days of rest and had asked him to monitor her correspondence. His tone was composed, his explanations routine, and no one suspected anything was wrong. On September 22, senior nurse Amrita Patel noticed that Myra had missed a critical compliance signature for a state health inspection, something she had never neglected before. Patel called Myra's phone, then the office landline. Both went unanswered. She finally called Rhea and expressed concern. That evening, Rhea drove to Golden Haven to check in person. Inside, everything appeared undisturbed. The office was locked but tidy. The lamp was off, the chair positioned neatly, and a single folder lay open on the desk. There was no travel bag, no note, and none of Myra's personal items, her purse, phone, and keys were missing. Rhea later told police it looked as though her mother stepped out during work and never came back. That night, Rhea filed a missing person report at the Fremont Police Department. Detectives arrived at Golden Haven the following morning. The office was sealed for processing, and a complete forensic examination began. Investigators photographed every surface, took swabs from high-touch areas, and conducted presumptive blood tests. Under luminol, faint traces of blood appeared along the edge of the desk and on the carpet near the wall. DNA testing later confirmed the samples belonged to Myra Thakur. On top of a filing cabinet, officers found a brass globe ornament that appeared freshly cleaned. Under ultraviolet light, microdroplets of blood were visible in the engraved seams, and hair fragments were caught beneath the base. Laboratory microscopy confirmed a match to Myra's DNA, identifying it as the probable weapon used in the assault. Detectives then reviewed the facility's internal access records. Data showed that on the night of September 16, the medical waste incinerator had been activated twice in succession at 9:47 p.m. and again at 10:02 p.m. using Dev Rajan's electronic ID. No waste removal orders or contamination events were recorded for that date. Video surveillance also captured Dev moving a covered load on a supply cart toward the utility wing at 9:41 p.m., minutes before the incinerator's activation. A court warrant authorized the disassembly of the unit. Forensic technicians removed ash and residue from the chamber base and exhaust filter. Laboratory analysis detected microscopic bone fragments and dental enamel particles, both human. Mitochondrial DNA confirmed the material belonged to Mira Thakur. Thermal data from the chamber indicated temperatures above 900 degrees Celsius for 2 consecutive burn cycles, consistent with an intentional attempt to destroy biological material. Further inspection of the connecting corridor revealed a diluted blood smear on the supply cart handle and a faint residue pattern on one wheel rim. Both samples matched Myra's DNA. No evidence of outdoor transfer was found, confirming the body was moved internally from the office to the utility room. With probable cause established, police searched Dev Rajan's apartment and seized his mobile phone. Inside, they found an empty container of disinfectant wipes, latex gloves, and printed immigration paperwork signed by Mira. A forensic download of his device showed deleted conversations and activity on Myra's account after the date she was last seen, including the 2 text messages sent to staff and to Ria. When questioned again, Dev gave inconsistent statements. He first claimed Mira slipped during an argument, then said she was already unconscious and he panicked. His account conflicted with electronic logs, the deliberate double activation of the incinerator, and the deleted phone records. By September 26, investigators had assembled a continuous forensic chain: blood traces in the office, the brass globe as the weapon, cart residue marking internal transfer, dual incinerator cycles under Dev's ID, and DNA-confirmed human remains inside the chamber. The case was officially reclassified from a disappearance to a homicide, evidence of a calculated concealment carried out entirely within Golden Haven. In May 2024, the Alameda County Superior Court indicted Dev Rajan, 26, on charges of first-degree murder, destruction of evidence, and unlawful use of medical equipment. The case drew public attention for its unusual combination of professional access, personal deception, and motive rooted in a hidden relationship triangle. At trial, prosecutors stated that Dev's actions stemmed from fear of exposure, loss of control, and the collapse of 2 relationships he had maintained simultaneously. Evidence showed that he had been involved with both Mira Thakur, his employer, and her daughter, Ria, at the same time. When Mira decided to end the affair and tell her daughter the truth, he acted to prevent the disclosure. The courtroom testimony focused on the systematic nature of his decisions that night. Forensic experts presented the incinerator's digital access logs, proving that Dev had run 2 full burn cycles under his personal ID. They showed photographs of bone microfragments and enamel particles recovered from the ash chamber. DNA testing confirmed the remains belonged to Mira Thakur. A mechanical engineer explained that each burn required manual restart and could not occur by accident. Investigators outlined the complete digital timeline: Dev's entry into the building at 9:12 p.m., his passage on hallway video at 9:41 p.m., and the incinerator activation at 9:47 p.m. The brass globe, recovered from Myra's office, contained microscopic traces of her blood and hair. Messages sent from Myra's phone after her death were traced to Dev's IP address and usage pattern. Ria testified briefly. She described the tension between her and her mother, her initial trust in Dev, and how she believed this trip to Napa's story until police became involved. She confirmed that both she and her mother had been emotionally involved with him at different times, and that neither had known about the other until just before the murder. Her testimony, though quiet, established the underlying motive: exposure meant the end of his control over both women. When questioned, Dev maintained that the death was accidental and claimed he panicked. Prosecutors countered that his subsequent actions, the cleanup, deletion of messages, and use of specialized medical equipment, demonstrated a deliberate cover-up. They argued that the murder was driven not by impulse, but by the collapse of a double life he could no longer sustain. After 6 days of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict: guilty on all counts. Dev Rajan was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. The court cited premeditation, calculated concealment, and manipulation of 2 family members as aggravating factors that ruled out leniency. Following the conviction, Golden Haven Assisted Living was permanently closed under state order. The facility's license was revoked, and its operations dissolved. Former staff said the case destroyed the image of a place built on trust and care. Ria graduated the following year and later joined a nonprofit focused on domestic violence and emotional manipulation awareness. She rarely spoke about the trial, but in one interview she reflected on what happened. "I thought staying silent would keep the peace. I didn't realize silence can also hide danger." The case of State of California versus Dev Rajan became a teaching example in forensic and legal programs, not only for its technical reconstruction without a body, but as a cautionary study of how personal deception, when mixed with power and control, can lead to irreversible violence.